Hello, everyone. Hello, Anna. Good
Hello.
afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Enjoying this sunny weather.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live webinar. As usual, me and Anna, every second Thursday each month. So we decided to do this because it's school holiday in the UK, and all the kids are at home. And sometimes people go for holiday, but we are still at home, so we could make it. So thank you for joining. So today, Anna, we're going to be discussing AI in sales and marketing. So
Mm.
specifically, you engage with marketing. Your entire life, me as well, and AI. So we can talk about AI and marketing, how landscape, how people can utilize it to grow
Mm.
more. We will discuss that in today's episode.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to this because I know everyone's a bit fed up of hearing about AI, but it's so important, particularly for neurodivergent people. It can really help us, can't it? So I'm really looking forward to this discussion and to the depths of it.
Mhm. We know that people usually learned and hear about AI after the pandemic. In between pandemic, people was at
Mm.
home. There wasn't that much activities. People was idle, not going out. And in the meantime, AI growth has expanded
Mm.
hugely. And after the pandemic, you see that a lot of things had happening at the same time. OpenAI and all those things, and now it's just like a spider web. So if you uh, see around, you will see everyone is AI.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the same changes?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I remember doing a talk. It must be 13, 14 years ago. And
Mhm.
we were talking about AI, this new thing, AI. And I did a talk, it was pre ChatGPT, all of those. And it was around, my talk was AI doesn't have to be exciting. And I talked about things like the Ocado engine, where when you order food, it can predict. And in those days, it was much more like prediction engines, machine learning, and people were not excited about it. I talked about warehousing systems. I mean, people were interested in how it worked and how it could make things more or efficient, but it was much more in manufacturing and sort of warehousing that we were talking about it. So for me, AI doesn't feel new because it's a long time that I've been using it. I used to work in web development and we used systems like 𝐄𝐯, which is a big content management system that used machine learning for personalization to personalize the recommendations on the site. We used, I think it was Covio, which was a predictive search. So all of these early AI machine learning type of techniques. So for me, it felt much more of a gradual thing. It was
Mhm.
more that AI, when ChatGPT, I was like, oh, other people are talking about this now. It used to be just us, and now everyone's talking about it because it
Mhm.
became so much more accessible because of the interfaces. And so, even though I've been using it for a while, it was quite nice to see other people talking about it because sometimes you felt like there was just a few of you going, "Oh, this is really useful," and no one else was interested.
Yeah. Totally. I totally agree with you what you're saying. I fell for this kind of system after my brain tumor operation in 2009. So that time, when I had my operation, I had speech problems, and so I could not speak properly. And my word was slurry, like, okay, no one could understand what I am saying, something like that. And that time I thought that, okay, wouldn't it possible to build a system like that? I will speak in my language, Bengali, and then it will be translated to English so people understand what I am saying, because my English word was like, if people couldn't understand. Still, if I wanted to pronounce certain words, I cannot, because I have muscle stiffness, and I cannot pronounce those words. Um, Tried from that time after my recovery, and I did my masters and PhDs based on the, like, okay, language models and how we can implement these things. Still, that wasn't there. Lots of libraries are now around, so I could not do what I wanted because it's expensive things to build to language models and all those things. It makes possible after the pandemic, like, okay, now A lot of people are working with those things. The research has done, and people are talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is it's this accessibility, isn't it? It's been out. The more people can access things, we see the technology adoption curve when it leads to mass adoption, and it's really interesting. I find that I think back to things like the iPod and how that became adopted, because I had some of the early MP3 players. There's one called MP Man. It only held 12 songs, but all my friends were like, "Oh, that's amazing," but they never took off. And then the iPod came along, and it wasn't necessarily the iPod that was successful. It was iTunes and accessing your favorite songs. And I
Mhm.
feel like ChatGPT and things like that, it feeds on our love of things like WhatsApp, this chat messaging, these familiar interfaces. When you look at AI previously, a lot of people had to be coders or, understand technology into quite a deep level. It's often the interface and how we interact with things, which is the thing that is this catalyst for change. I went to something recently and they talked about something old with something new. If something's all new, people don't engage with it because it's too unfamiliar, but they don't want the same old thing over and over again. So you pair something new with something old. And we're used to chatting. We're used to chatting to each other. So when an interface comes where you can just chat to a robot, an AI, it feels fairly natural. I mean, there are issues with this where you've seen that people can sometimes, their brain can quite get a bit used to it being like a person and taking the wrong advice. But
Mhm.
it's that something old with something new. And I love that it's become mass adoption. I'm not saying it's perfect yet, but it's interesting to see people exploring it.
I totally agree with what you're saying, because the new um, uh, the new voice assistant that we developed and we launched.
Mm,
We've been working for 2-3 years. As I told you, that I've been working for that too, for many years now.
mm,
And when the technology is available, we started to building it. Now we launched it. I have to talk a lot with my models all the time. Like, okay, if I'm giving them wrong information, how they react, how they behave, and all those things.
mm,
And one thing that I realized when I'm working with these assistant models is that I was asking them, okay, can you tell me this? Can you tell me those? All those other things. And I saw that it asking me, okay, you can do that, you can do that. And I realized that I'm going to be using this model for specifically tailored services. So if the model assistant, it gives other information, it's not right, it's not legitimate, because sometimes the
mm,
information is wrong. That AI gives false information, wrong information, and it's not good. So what we did at the end, we train it to be exactly pinpoint to the knowledge base. Like,
mm,
okay, if someone is asking something, like, okay, how it will react, it will say, okay, I don't have that information, so you need to talk to a human to do that. And
mm,
to achieve that goal, we have to work long way. Another thing, when we launch, for a normal line, someone called and they talked to like 15 minutes, and they were asking that, how can I kill ants in my house and all those things. And it was giving those information as well. You can kill ants like this way, that way, that way, that way. And we understood that, okay, we have to bound it with some rules and all
mm,
those things, that it doesn't go beyond that thing. And Anna, we talk about in our conversation in previous episodes, that AI is not always right.
mm. Yeah, it isn't. And you do have to be super careful with that as well, because the problem is, my thing at the moment is, I think that AI is best in the hands of subject matter experts. If you're a marketing expert and you use AI, you can spot the nonsense. If you're a copywriter, you can spot bad copywriting. And my worry is that there's a couple of worries in the workplace, that people are getting rid of subject matter experts. So people that aren't trained in things can ask it questions and they don't know how to validate that answer. because then that's not their area of expertise. If I asked it something about nuclear physics and it told me, I would have to believe it because I know nothing about nuclear physics. If it tells me if it gives me some copy, I'll go, oh, that's rubbish. I did some voice of customer research yesterday with AI, and it came back with a couple of things. Now, I know my industry and business really well, and it came back with a couple of things, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. So we had a bit of a backwards and forwards, and I was questioning it and saying, I don't think that's right. I think that this, and it did have a couple of valid points back at me as well, which I was like, yeah, that is a really good point. But if I'd not known my subject matter, I'd have gone, all right then, and taken that as being truth, when actually our experience, we can go, actually, I can question that. And I think this is where AI, people are going wrong with AI, is that they're asking it stuff but not questioning it, and maybe because they don't have the skill set to question it, and whether they actually need to learn the skills in that area first before they actually use AI in that. I was using it the other day to redesign my logo and website, and it did some logos for me, and I was only using it as a draft because I like to design them properly, and it got like 50% there. Now, someone that doesn't know about design, because I'm an ex-web designer, I would have gone, oh, they look all right, but there was kerning was wrong, things didn't line up, it just didn't work well as a logo. But the base idea was sound, so I took the base idea, went through Google Fonts, found some fonts, it's got Photoshop up, created my own logo. Looks quite different from theirs, but the idea was sort of there. And if I'd not known sort of what makes a logo look good or wonky, I would have gone, oh yeah, that's fine, I'll just copy and paste it, you know. So I do worry that we're not using it as expertise. It's like people asking it for legal advice that aren't legal. I've done it a couple of times and I'm like, is that right? I don't know, because that's not my area of expertise. My son, I'm doing all these SEND applications at the moment for his education, so because my son's got autism, and I have to fact check all of the things it gives me, like laws, responsibilities of the local authority, because I don't know if it's giving me the correct information. So I have to try and see if I can find some expert sites to corroborate what it's saying. And you're right, it is wrong quite a lot, or it interprets things different to how a human brain would be and not always correctly. So it's kind of got the gist, but because it hasn't got our way of thinking, it doesn't quite get the point. So I do worry about that, because there's a lot of misinformation going around, and the problem is with bias in data, it can then keep circulating that misinformation, because if someone shares it online, it gets back into the AI and then it gets back round again. So I do worry about that side of things and making it accurate. I don't know what the answer to that is, but it is a worry.
I totally agree with what you're saying, because you know, we are a media company, and we create logos and information. But what we do, we specifically asked AI to give us the idea, like, okay, what can be done? So it shows us lots of different things, and then we took that idea and then we create a different thing, like just you said, because you know, the AI, it will give you the same information with millions of people. So if you're using a logo generated by AI, you will see someone else will have the same logo. If you don't utilize your imagination, don't utilize your expertise to create it different, because I have seen it myself that someone is using same text and all the social media text in the same space is same. Yeah. So it's giving you the same information to millions of users. So you are not unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a bit back to what you're saying about putting those guardrails on, because when I do stuff, I don't go, write me a blog, do me a logo. I brief it as if I'm briefing a designer, or I give it some context to work within, you know, like my new business. So I am pivoting my business at the moment because I released my book, and has got such good feedback that I'm pivoting my entire business around my book's 3 leaks thing of offer visibility and clarity. So I'm rebranding at the moment to fit that. And so what I did is I gave it context of who my audience were, who I am, as a person, because my brand needs to reflect me. I gave it some sort of like ideas of like how I wanted it to look. I gave it, actually went to a site called 𝐄𝐯𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻 and picked a color palette. So I did some of this groundwork. I talked about some of the fonts I liked. So I gave it all of this sort of information to give it a remit to work in, because exactly like you said, otherwise it could just do anything for me and it would probably look the same. I did a test. I did a talk last year, and it was the hidden bias in data. And I typed into AI, create me a picture of a startup founder. And it created this guy, sort of white guy with a beard and a moustache and a laptop, shirt and jeans. It was like the stereotypical tech startup founder. And I thought, okay. And then I wrote, oh, create me another picture. And it basically made me the same guy. So I opened another chat window and asked the same. And I thought, oh, maybe it's ChatGPT. So I went to Gemini and asked it the same question. It was almost the same picture. And then I think I asked Copilot, and once again, almost the same picture. And then we did the experiment in the workshop that I was doing, the talk. And all of the room, apart from one lady who got a female startup founder, everyone else got almost the exact same picture, because the brief had been so small, and it goes for the most generic thing possible. And there were slight tweaks, but they were basically the same tech bro in all of these pictures. Some of them were actually identical to mine, same background, same colors. So exactly your point. If you don't put enough information, you get the same thing as everyone else.
It's similar, because we did the same thing. Even when we, when we build our models with the large LLM, it's not possible for a small company like us to build our own LLMs. So what we did, we tried ChatGPT, we tried 𝐶𝐞, we tried OpenAI, and all other things, Gemini, and we have to train it, because this is the base model, and people don't understand it properly if they don't go through with the cycle that we just discussed now. They will give you a base thing, but to take it to the next levels, you need to know how you prompt the AI to give you the right results. And then you utilize your memory, utilize your imagination, utilize all the originality to make it original. Otherwise, you will get the same crap things and people will not like it. Even if we that when you develop, or when you do something in graphic design, to create a specific animation, it takes ages, at least 2-3 weeks. But if you write a right prompt, you can get that animation done in few hours time. Yeah. But that's not end of the thing. After that animation, you need to implement your originality to it, because nowadays, I think if you post AI thing directly, the system, they will detect like, okay, this is a AI text, this is a AI image, this is a AI videos. So you can work with AI. This is assistive tools, as I utilize it all the time. But with originality, it makes it original. Otherwise, you're going to be lost in millions of other users that not getting actual benefit of using it.
Yeah, no, that's the thing and this is the thing that you see a lot of these posters around at the moment for like events, and there are all these over designed posters for like fates and summer days and things. And I've seen a lot of kickback on these, lots of takeaway shops are using them, and they're really over engineered. And I mean, when I look at them, I think about the posters that people designed before, word art, Comic Sans text. They were awful. These are a different kind of awful, because they're very busy and over. But if you're not a designer, you don't know that all the posters are the same. In fact, a lot of people look at those posters and go, oh, I really like that. I'm going to create one of my own, because it's not their subject matter. The same as when people do a poster hand done on Word, and it's got awful text and forget to put half the information. And I don't know whether at this stage I hate or love those awful posters that they create in ChatGPT and that now, because at least number one, they actually have some information on them. So that's a step up from a lot of the posters that I've seen in the past. And actually, you know, they're quite bright and people seem to like them. If people didn't like them, they would be not creating them, but they've gone, oh, that's really nice, I'm going to create one of my own. And I wonder, like, I feel like we're at this stage now where we are just learning, like you said about the prompting and understanding how they work. We're just learning. Like, this is baby steps. I liken it to when I first started web design. And my first website had animated GIFs. It had MIDI music in the background. It had a spinning 3D logo. I thought it was the best. It was amazing. And then we learned about better design and how things looked a bit neater and how things worked accessibly and things like that. And we improved. And I feel like we're at the animated GIF version of AI. You know, we are that early beginning where people are experimenting. They're going to get it wrong. You know, we see loads of AI text, you know, people with AI slop. We see a lot of this AI text and people will get it wrong. But then someone will go, oh, that sounds awful. And they go, oh, does it? Oh, I better try it. Like, so they'll iterate and get better at it, because we are, you know, some people that are using AI, I know a couple of people that can barely use a computer and they're trying AI and they're experimenting. You know, my dad learned how to use YouTube in his 70s, and he made some music and then he recorded his voice over it, and then he did this little sort of funny slideshow over the top and put it on YouTube. Now, anyone that looks at YouTube will go, oh my goodness, this looks a bit like low budget and everything. And he would probably have been like, yeah, people would go, oh, that's just, yeah, it doesn't look very good. And so it kind of annoys me, because you can't win. If something doesn't look good and it's low budget, people have a moan about that. But then people try and make it better with AI, and actually they have a moan about that. You know, you can't win unless you're sort of subject matter expert. But I quite like the having a go. And people are not going to get AI right. It is new. We're a bit better, you know, a bit better off because we're both technical. You know, I'm an ex-software developer as well. So we're going to manage it a bit better. But I don't know, I quite like the idea of people giving it a go and messing it up and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff.
No, it's totally understandable. You know, we're talking about AI and marketing, and we talk about graphic design and videos and all those things. You know, AI is a tools that utilize your perfection more better if you know how to use it. That's the thing. You know,
Yeah.
We develop AI videos, and as myself, you know that I had a long career regarding video editing and digital film animation, all those things. So when I started 3D, when I started Google Flow, Ultra Google Flow, it took me 2-3 months to get the right prompt. How can I write the prompt and then utilize the Google Flow to create the right scene? And even when I create the scenes, I have to create a scene at least 3 or 4 times. Sometimes I have to execute the creating that scene because AI cannot do it. Yeah. So I have to think alternatively, like, okay, how can I create this scene that, so I have to create 3 or 4 scene and edit them together to make one. Yeah. That's the thing, because when you utilize AI, yes, it's a supportive tools. It can give you good thing and bad thing, both thing. And you cannot really 100% utilize it if you're not a subject professional, like you said earlier. You need to know how to edit in Photoshop, how to edit in Illustrator. Although I'm not a pro editor in Illustrator or Photoshop, but I'm a pro type editor. Any editing tools you give it to me, I just will check, and then I will go, whatever I can do it very quick. Yeah. So that's the thing, that if you're not a subject expert, for you, I would say, is if you're in SME or you just wanted to try, do not want to hire people, you have low budget, then it's okay. Don't worry about anything because you don't have the budget. But if you are if you are not a subject expert and you wanted to attract people, you wanted to advertise, and you wanted to grow your network or earn more money, then I think it's better to select a subject expert to do that for you. You can give idea. That's another thing. If you learn things, you will understand how things work, and then you can give them prompt, or give them the direction, like, okay, I want this to be done like that way, and they will give you a good piece of work that will be accepted for everyone.
Yeah. And do you know what is really interesting as well? I found when I started experimenting with AI is that people, even if you put something better in front of them sometimes they don't like that because of their own biases in place. So I'll give you an example. My agency used to do copywriting. I'm an ex-PR. I'm a good copywriter. I used to hire good copywriters in as well, brilliant ones. And some businesses loved what we did. You know, we would write and they would have no changes and they were really happy. And then I worked with a lot of very small startups, particularly around sort of crowdfunding and things like that. And we would write copy for them, and it was good converting copy. We know how to write copy, and my experts that I brought in know how to write copy. I've worked with some of them for years, and they were like, "Oh, no, I don't like it. I want it to say this," because it's how they would say it. Because even if someone, this problem, if you're like a founder and you're not an expert, you get in your own way sometimes. And we did an experiment for a few weeks where what we did, because all these people we had an hour or so call with before we wrote, and we experimented with writing with a lot of AI assistants. And what we would do, we would take the transcript, which was the founder talking to us in their own words, and we would put it into AI. We had a very specific page layout that it needed to go in, and it would fill it in. And interestingly, even though when we looked through, we're like, this is not as good copy as we would write, and then we knew the reasons, it got signed off more because it was parroting their own language back to them. The problem is the founder's language was not necessarily the customer's language. But this is the problem I think we have with AI as well, because when I've been doing my copy for my website, I've done a lot of voice of customer research. So not my voice. I want it to reflect that. And I do use AI a little bit to bounce ideas off, even though I copyright a lot of it myself. I do use it a little bit. And so I make sure I feed in the customer voice and the language they use, not what I would describe it as, because the problem is, and this is what I worry with a lot of founders that use it, is you're putting your own spin and your own biases straight into it and not knowing what the good copywriting is. And it frustrated me so much that these founders would sign off this copy because they liked how it sounded. Of course they did. It was their own language back to them. But this is where the subject experts come in, because we can go, no, we're going to pull you away from the subject and actually do it in the way that is right to sell your business and to make and to make you money, because that's the point, is to make you money. It's not to boost our own egos. And that's the problem with AI as well. It will flatter you and boost your own ego as well. It's to make something that sells. And this is problem. I do worry when founders start using AI, it's going to give them what they want to hear and the copy that the language they're using, and they're going to go, this sounds brilliant. And the customers are going to go, that's not what I say. And that really worries me.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Anna. I just give an example. I don't want to mention anyone's name. I am a good listener. So I when I work, BBC will be on my one of my monitor. As you know, I have 4 monitors in my table right now. So BBC will be one of the monitor. Even if it's not BBC, then it's ITV or I watch Al Jazeera as well. So most of the time, I would say 95% is BBC. So I understand the way their script is written, and this BBC, these newscaster, they always scripted. It's not, they cannot do without their own thing, rather than when they talk specifically, even they have to have a script. So when we write things for customer, we have to follow, like, okay, what is the right tune for people to attack that. So BBC will say something, okay, top journal paper, or top magazine, or top this, top that, because they use this proposition to make it extraordinary.
Yeah.
So when you utilize those things to write your content, like, okay, when you write content, people have to resonate, that they have to a proposition have to use in a way that people quickly understand, okay, top, or those kind of proposition that quickly attract people's minds. So I was doing that, and someone told me that, okay, this is not a good copyright, it doesn't resonate what they are thinking about. But they don't think that this is not for them, this is for their customer. Yeah, because
Mm.
how the customer will resonate with your story, that's the thing we have to do. It's not like that we're going to be telling your
Mm.
story, but in your voice. We have to tell the story on customer voice. And I have also
Yeah.
experienced this kind of thing. They don't value the way you write, and it's mess up everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm reading a book at the moment. So my friend Matt Wilson, but The Buyer in the Loop. And interestingly, he talks about this quite a lot, where you get the customer voice. Sometimes like in bigger companies, you will start with the customer voice, and then the legal team will go, oh, I don't think we could quite say it like that. Let's tweak it because it's a bit safer. And then you get the product owner going, oh, no, I think we should say it this way. Well, lots of opinions, but not based on the original fact and the research. And then the CEO's like, oh, I think he says in there, like, oh, don't forget to mention our heritage, that we've been going 15 years. And so it sort of compounds, and it's you get further and further away from the buyer. There was a really good talk, I think it was Luke, is it Rabrowski? He's from Google, and it's called Mind the Gap. And it's about how particularly bigger organizations, the gap can widen as every new part of the product ownership gets a little bit of a piece of it. And it's because everyone's got their own domain and their own thoughts and their own opinions. And back to sort of the buyer in the loop, what happens is the buyer's here, and then you just, all these little bits are adding in because everyone wants to have their own bit of ownership in something. And I think in small businesses, it's easier to stay near the buyer because often, as business owners, or there might be two or three of you, the buyer better, but also it's hard to be objective as well. So both have got a problem, because even when I write something, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if that's quite how I'd say it. And I'm like, no, voice of customer research, that's how they would say it. That's the language they would use. And I have to keep correcting myself. Oh, it doesn't sound like me. It doesn't have to sound exactly like me. It needs to sound somewhere between me and them. It's got to sound like me as a business, but I need to reflect their language as well. And I find it is very hard when you're close to something to be objective about it. So, small and big businesses seem to have this problem. And I think AI can help with it as well, because I do my voice of customer research. And interestingly, in that book, Buyer in the Loop, Matt talks about synthetic customers, where you can create these profiles based on your research. Sort of customer interviews and everything, and create these synthetic customers to kind of bounce ideas off of, so that you take yourself out of that loop. And if you're in a bigger company, you take all your teams out of that loop and say, actually, is that what you're thinking, or is that what the customer's thinking? So AI can be brilliant for that as well, because it can, back to where you're using it properly, if you know what you can use it for, and to question it as if it was a customer, you can then take yourself out of that loop and take away that bias as well. But it's back to that knowledge, isn't it? Knowing how to use it.
I totally agree what you're saying, because when you utilize something, when you advertise something, it's only it's for them. It's not for us. I know that. Okay, I have built a system. You as well, and you read your book is published. You've written a book, but you have written for them. You haven't written for you, did you? No, because if you're not written for them, no one will resonate what you are telling. That's the thing. And then you have to tell your story the way your listener want to listen them. Like if you're telling the story to a 5 years old, you're going to be telling the same story to a 20. It has to be different. Same story.
Yeah.
That's the way it will work. When I started my PhD, and we have to learn these things. Okay, how you can resonate same story for different age groups, because same thing to everyone, they will not take it. It's different age groups, different experiences. Story, you can it same way to a black population, or maybe a Asian population, brown population. So that's the way you need to differentiate. Like, okay, you have a brand. Like if you see about big giant corporation like even Nike or Google or everything, they have dedication for each target audience separately, because you cannot tell them the same thing with same way, same bucket to everyone. Another thing I wanted to mention here, like, you have a story, you wanted to tell that a story. So how we are solving these problems, like, okay, we will build an advertisement based on the customer. Like, okay, you have a product and you wanted to sell that product, so you wanted to tell customer story to attract those customer. And one story cannot attract infinite customer, because everyone is not same. So you need to differentiate that thing to specific customer genre. Like, okay, you want 10% of that customer to attract to this message, and you need to create another message for another type of customer. And then if you wanted to tell your story, now how we are doing, we adding conversational AI. Okay, like, okay, you wanted to talk to your customer with your knowledge, let them come, let them talk to you, and let them know your things from your knowledge base. Like, okay, this is your knowledge, they will know who you are, how you wanted to serve. So it's for everyone, so they understand this, and everyone will not ask the same question. Different people will ask different questions, so you add them to the way you want.
Yeah, and that is the thing, isn't it? It's that audience segmentation, because when I work with a lot of companies that have very different audience, like they've got plumbers and then they've got lawyers, and they're going to use very different language. And the one thing that I found hard about my book, because I deal with it's quite broad. It's hands-on owner operator business founders, those that work in the business as well as sort of trying to run the business as well. So they do the accountancy and the architecture. It's quite broad, and that's one thing I found was hard, trying to make sure I sort of said enough and gave enough examples to cover quite a few different aspects. It's easier when you're doing campaigns, because you could do 3 months on plumbing, and you can have, like you said, case study of plumbers and big plumbers and small plumbers, and pictures of plumbers and a landing page of plumbers, and it will all be tailored to that one thing. And then for lawyers, you've then run 3 months for lawyers, and it's all tailored to them. And that's one thing I find about AI is you do have to try and get it to segment things, because and this is back to that subject expert, because otherwise it will just give you generic messaging for everyone, and that doesn't really work. So you need to say, right, these are my different audience groups, how do each of them speak? When I did my book, my language to start with was a lot more around STEM, and that was even more abrupt than what I'm quite abrupt in the book, but it was more abrupt than what it was. And actually the title of the book with the swear word in came from my voice of customer research, because people passionately hated marketing and sales, and all the quotes I got back from Reddit and LinkedIn were like, I effing hate marketing, or putting it in capital letters, I hate marketing. Like, there was this real passion about it. So that's why actually I'm not much of a swearer, but I was reflecting the language that some of the audience used, and they really didn't like sales and marketing. They didn't like running a business. Some of them, they were really fed up with it. They were just like, I just want to code software. I just want to do people's accounts. I just want to do what I would love. So when I did that research, I sort of reflected that back in every aspect of my book and how I talked about the language. And I had to be really careful, because I kept leaning a bit into being a bit condescending, and my audience is quite, not sensitive's not the word, but they're under a lot of pressure and they're very stressed. And the last thing they want is someone being condescending. They know it's hard. They know they're not great at marketing. They don't need me to tell them that they're not doing a great job, but they know. And so I had to try and reflect that sort of language on how they would want to be spoken to, rather than sometimes, like with people I know, I can be a bit of a school mom. Right, have you done it yet? You know, get in the corner and stand in the corner with your back to me if you haven't done it. But I can do that in person. But, you know, not generally with the language that I needed. But if I was doing different books to different people, if I was doing one to the trades or I was doing one to the professional services, each book would sound incredibly different, exactly back to what you're saying. And I would have to train AI about those different audiences before we even encountered something like that. If you wanted it to write for you, same with blogs. You know, you can't write a generic blog for everyone. You know, plumbers are going to use certain language. Back to lawyers, you know, very different. So absolutely agree with you.
Mm-hmm. And we got some questions. We don't know that we can answer all those questions because we can be finishing in 45 to 50 minutes today. So once some asks me, Rahanuddin asks, if businesses has zero AI integration today, what should be their very first step?
I mean, I don't feel like there's a major answer to this because I'm going to do the marketing one. It depends, because it depends on your internal capability. For example, if you are a group of, I'm going to pick accountants because they tend to be a little bit more old-fashioned, or lawyers, and you don't have any technology like set up already. Even getting something like Microsoft 365 and getting Copilot might be a first big step, for people to experiment in a safe place. If you're really technical, it might be, I mean, I'm a big fan of AI and automations, automating those boring tasks. Don't outsource human tasks. The really dull admin where you get an inquiry in from a customer and it needs to be funneled somewhere, and then a reminder to follow up on it. That automated task, those are the ones where I'd start if you haven't got anything, because I have one in Copilot at work. It checks my inbox and checks who I haven't replied to. Absolutely wonderful. Keeps me from having to panic. Well, who haven't I replied to? And that's just a simple prompt that's a recurring prompt that happens twice a week. So you start with the basics. Where are you spending your time that you don't need to? Look at your processes. That's where I start.
I totally agree with you, Anna, because you talk about copilots or any AI medium that you use. Another thing you need to understand that a AI platform you're going to be using, you have to be stay there quite sometimes, because those models also needs to understand your content writing ability, all those things. So you need to feed into your knowledge base to them. Like, okay, that's the way I wanted to write. That's the way my tone is. That's the way I would do that things, or that's the way you prompt to them. Because it's not like you will use one and then you transfer to another one and then another one. So every medium, AI medium, it also needs time to understand your audience, and then you will get things properly. And one thing I would say, every AI tools, they are different. So if you're utilizing one tool for one purposes, you need to utilize another tools for another purposes, because they will not give you the same results. So as I use AI tools, and I use multiple AI tools, and we develop AI tools as well, the way you said, Anna, that follow up. I'm very bad at follow upping. So I want my AI tools to do that for me. And another question is asked by Omar, that how is small business is use AI to generate high qualified leads without a massive or budget. I think, Omar, we have, we have a normal tendency that we don't want to spend any money to generate new leads. So you can do it free, but you need to spend a lot of time with, I would say, LinkedIn, or specifically, because if you are doing B2B or B2C, then is Facebook. You need to find out specifically those businesses. You can also search on Google, but to do those kind of work without budget, I think that will not give you, because you need to spend hours and hours and hours to sort out those leads. And if you spend little bit of money, there are a lot of other tools out there. You can get leads every month with 60 or 100 quits, and you can spend your time what you are very good at rather than spending your time with low budget or those things. I think we have this mentality that we don't want it to spend on searching leads or automating things. But if you think about hiring a second person to do that, how much money you would pay to them? If you're in the UK, it's just like £15 an hour if a low budget thing. And this kind of work is just like 24,000 or 25,000 starting point. So if you think about that, I would say I would move out with the low budget thingy, because if you're a business, you need to have a little bit of budget to do those work with AI or any other tools, and then spend your time what you are good at. What do you think now?
Yeah, I mean, my question would be, do you need customers? And if you do, which most businesses do, why are you not spending on them, for whatever tools that you want? In fact, one of my things that I always say to small businesses, the first thing I tell people to spend on is marketing and sales, more than development. You can sell something before you've finished it and get an income coming in. So you even see big companies doing that. I mean, I'm pretty sure Elon Musk did that with the Cybertruck. They got pre-sales, and he's a billionaire because people. The great thing about getting that, and it's one thing I cover in my book, is that not only do you get pre-sales in to afford to finish whatever you're finishing, but also you validate your idea at the same time, because if people won't pay for it, then don't bother building it. And I think this is what I struggle with marketing, being an ex-marketeer. Like at the moment, particularly in the UK, it's quite a difficult market, and the first thing people cut is marketing. And I went, well, if it's a difficult market, are you saying you don't want customers? Because I don't understand that. I would cut somewhere else, like operations or something that you can maybe muddle through. You can't muddle through without marketing, because I've worked with companies that have turned back their marketing or dialed it back, and the impact happens fairly quickly. If you close a company, you pretty much stop getting inquiries within weeks, because you've stopped marketing it. I had a company that I closed. I was a photographer, and I used to get a lot of inquiries, and I ran my business for a few years, and I decided to close it from health problems, because my back kept giving out from carrying a camera. And I went from getting tons of inquiries. I turned off my marketing. Must have been 4 or 5 weeks. I used to get some word of mouth ones, but the other ones, 4 or 5 weeks, stopped, because I'd sort of turned off that engine of people finding me. And so for me, marketing and sales is the place to put it. I think the problem is that people don't understand sales and marketing enough to put it in the right places all the time, and this is why they think it's a wasted budget, because they don't do the research, they don't set the goals. And this is my big bugbear, when you need business goals, because marketing cannot reach a goal if there's no goal there. So what are your business goals? What do you want to earn? What are your customer base? What's the market? What's the language? Don't bother doing anything until you've done all those, and then you do the pre-work. So I do a 12-week marketing course, and the first 3 sessions are goal setting, mission, vision, values, understanding what you sell in your product, and being able to articulate that before you do anything. Because what happens is, if you don't get those bits right, and that's where I would spend money initially, then all the marketing in the world won't happen, even if it's AI generated, and the thing with AI, I find, is it compounds problems. So if your marketing is not working and it's not AI, don't do AI, because that will just make it worse. It'll just make it on a larger scale. Find those channels that work and understand what is working for you, and experiment before delving into AI marketing, because otherwise you're just going to end up doing loads of content written in ChatGPT that doesn't resonate with anyone. It's going to be a waste of everyone's time, and it's just pointless. So I'm quite strict on marketing. There are a lot of really bad marketing people out there, and founders that do bad marketing, and I think it's from this lack of understanding the fundamentals. So if you're not having a budget, why is that? What are you spending money on that you could divert to marketing? Back to your point, Dr. Shah, because actually it's going to be worth the money, because you're going to put money out into marketing and then you're going to get money back. That's the point of it.
I totally agree what you're saying, Anna, because as different people, they wanted to cut their budget. You just say the right thing. Even some people, they don't know. If you run an advertisement on Facebook, it can run $1 or $2 per day, and it can attract many people to your page. Yeah, it's just like the awareness that people know about you, and to generate leads from there, you need to go one step ahead. Like you need to spend a little bit more money to Google or Facebook to attract people to your website, because you need to drag people to your website. And you know that we have a common misconception here that you will find people. Yes, that's one of the string, that you will go to people and they will ask for, okay, they need help. But you need to also find in a way that people are looking for their to solve their problems. You also attract those customers. So specifically, it's not like that one way will lead you or feed you all the success that you're looking for. It's just like 3 4 different ways. Some people, they will say cold calling. Yes, cold calling is a good thing, it's not died yet. Email marketing, that's also a good thing, it's not died yet. You also need to go for PPC and Facebook PPC, or Google or LinkedIn, based on your budget, all those things. And without marketing, if people don't know who you are and how you align your product and services to solve their problem, you cannot sell a single thing. And that's why I tell my employees and my people, they are working like, okay, you need to think about what problem you're solving first, and then, as you said, you need to prioritize what services or products you wanted to sell to them. And then the log and all those things, like, okay, you have a product and you have a 3 months or 6 months or a year thing that, okay, you will do gradually. Like, okay, then you can pinpoint your success, your failure, and how you need to change it, or what you need to do, all those things. But if you are a person and your expertise is not in marketing, if you wanted to do that, you need to learn that first. Otherwise, you're going to be doing things, but you will not get any results from there. and
Yeah.
and that's going to be a dire for you. So that's the thing, Omar. I think if you're in the market, if you wanted to extend, you have to have some budget for those things, and you do the good thing that you are very good at, and utilize expertise from other people that they are good at. Otherwise, it's going to be muddled, and your growth going to be slower, like sluggish. You cannot grow faster.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And just to say as well, it does depend on who the high quality leads are as well, because just like you've just mentioned, Dr. Shah, there's lots of different channels. So I've been working with a lot of customers, and one of my colleagues teaches the Dream 100 strategy, which is letter writing. Going back to old fashioned letter writing here, but we do involve a bit of AI. AI helps to write the letters, and we do them in the sequence of 3 letters, and they're physically posted out to people, because but they wouldn't work for someone selling a Mars bar. You wouldn't spend ages posting out a letter for someone to buy a Mars bar. That's for a specific type of audience. We'd be in a big contract. It's something that's going to be a bit meaty. And what they sometimes do is send out lumpy mail, which is put a little gift in with the mail, and then people are more likely to open it. I saw one that he'd put in his presentation, and someone had sent it was for a warehouse, and they did warehouse cleaning, and they'd sent them a robot vacuum. I mean, that's a huge thing to send people, but this could be a £1 million contract. And so for them, that we've seen people just send 20 letters, not even with something in it, just 20 letters, however that much costs. I mean, what's the stamp these days? £2, so £2 times 20, and they've had 15% conversion rates. So the AI involved is maybe helping them find the leads, that it might try and pinpoint who might fit the bill, and helping you write the letter. But actually, there's not much automation in there, and you send them out. So the advice would be very different for different people, and you can do these things. But back to yours, you were saying about budget. The other budget is time. So if it doesn't cost you any money, that time goes up. Sending letters does take time, and you have to research, and you have to do stuff. So there is those options. Whereas if you're selling Mars bars, I wouldn't suggest sending letters. So it is a lot of, it depends on your customers as well. Because if you're just sending £20 services, back to yours, like ads work really well, and I would be looking at sort of like how I could maybe automate some ads and using some AI to maybe make that process just a little bit easier. But once again, you might need a platform that you have to pay for, exactly what you're saying, Dr. Shah. So those questions are quite broad, and actually it's back to that: what's your market, how are they going to respond, what are your goals, how many people do you need, what are your financial goals? Because if you've got that, then you can sort of work out from there where you need to spend your money, if it's letter writing or a platform.
I totally agree with you, Anna. So I aim to finish our conversation today in 50 minutes, but we are 7 minutes over. We're nearly 1 hour going to be. So I think we can wind it up now. Anna, what do you think?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I think also, like, if anyone's got any more questions about like our thoughts, because I think this topic is so broad, because it's such an it depends topic, and it depends on your audience, and it depends on your business. And this is why, I do worry, back to that AI and being a bit generic, you have to be very specific when you're talking to it and asking it for advice. If you put in, how can I get high quality leads with no budget, it might come up with some ideas, but it doesn't know your business very well. It doesn't know your market. So making sure that you're tailoring it, or getting a specialist in, at least at the early stages, to identify that problem and who you're targeting, and then say, okay, this is what you need, and then implementing AI, I think is, like, so getting like the Dr. Shahs in, who can use his mind to sort of understand what you need. Because if you don't do that stage, it can go horribly wrong. And I'm not saying don't use AI, have fun with it, be curious, but be aware that if you're not used to it, you're learning, and you're at the animated GIF stage, the MIDI music stage that we were doing with websites. You might get it wrong, but that's okay, because nothing's permanent, is it, Dr. Shah? Today's post is gone tomorrow, so it's okay to be not be perfect.
I totally agree with you, Anna, because do the right thing, learn if you wanted to do it yourself. But as I said, it will cost you money either way. If you wanted to learn it and implement it, you cannot do your work. So as I earlier mentioned, that I wanted to learn Google Flow, how I can develop AI prompt to write, or develop right script, or right audience, and those things. I have to spend my times over there, and to do that, I have to let it go some other things that I do. You cannot do everything on your time, because you are not AI. But I think if you wanted to work with AI, like use AI automation tools, doesn't matter if you are busy, the automation tools will do rest of the things, like as I described earlier for Voexa. You can just have a AI workforce solution within your business. AI will do all the work that you scripted to do, and you can do other things. So at the end, money will come as well, because whatever you wanted to do properly, you need to spend a little bit of money, because without that, you cannot grow, freely, I would say. So, Anna, and everyone, thank you very much. We are near, and we finished our 1 hour. And we're going to be welcome you next month, and we're going to be deciding if we wanted to have another episode, because it's a lot of talk we wanted to do. So we will let you know through LinkedIn and all other social media about next episode in next couple of days. But until then, thank you everyone for joining, and appreciate your support, and bye-bye.
Bye.